In 1978, a comparison chart circulated inside a Soviet ministry. It listed 2 machines. One domestic, one Western. The chart was removed within weeks. No announcement. No correction. No explanation. Just absence. The machine it described still stood in its designated room. Tall cabinets. Reels turning. Panels blinking with quiet authority. It was introduced as proof that the future had arrived. Across the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, mainframe computers were presented as symbols of industrial maturity. Planning ministries spoke about automated management. Factories were told that calculation would replace inefficiency. Universities trained engineers for a digital age defined not by the market, but by the plan. The machines were large, centralized, and state-owned. They were not consumer tools. They were instruments of coordination. Production targets. Energy distribution. Rail scheduling. Statistical modeling. In official publications, the tone was confident. The West had corporations. The socialist structure had coordination. The narrative was simple: planning, supported by computing power, would outperform competition. And physically, the machines looked convincing. Metal cabinets filled entire rooms. Cooling systems hummed constantly. Technicians in white coats monitored panels behind glass partitions. Visitors were shown these rooms as evidence. The future was here. It was measurable. It was controlled. But inside one ministry office, someone placed 2 columns side by side. And numbers do not respond to ideology. The chart compared processing speed. It compared memory capacity. It compared reliability over sustained operation. The domestic system was not primitive. It functioned. It performed calculations. It supported administrative workloads. But the Western system completed tasks faster. It handled larger datasets. It required fewer workarounds. The difference was not catastrophic. It was consistent. And consistency is harder to dismiss. Throughout the 1960s and 1970s, the Soviet bloc pursued computing under centralized industrial programs. Designs were standardized. Production quotas were assigned. Models were aligned through coordination agreements among socialist states. The goal was compatibility inside the bloc, not competition outside it. Factories did not ask how their machines compared globally. They asked whether they met the plan. Did they deliver the assigned number of units? Did they stay within allocated material inputs? Did they meet internal certification standards? If yes, success was recorded. The planning structure rewarded fulfillment, not acceleration. Western firms operated under market competition. If a machine underperformed, clients shifted contracts. If a new model improved speed, competitors responded within months. In the bloc, redesign required agreement. Suppliers adjusted. Lines paused. Targets recalculated. In the West, redesign meant months. In the bloc, redesign meant permission. The chart did not accuse. It listed metrics. Execution time. Storage density. Failure intervals. The Western column moved ahead in small but steady increments. Not dramatically. Incrementally. And incremental gaps compound. A gap does not begin as a crisis. It begins as a delay. A 10% delay becomes a workflow bottleneck. A minor memory limitation restricts future applications. A reliability difference forces additional human oversight. Engineers understood this. In research institutes, specialists read foreign technical journals when available. They studied published benchmarks. They reverse-engineered ideas where possible. They adapted. But adaptation inside a centrally planned industrial logic has limits. Factories were evaluated on units produced, not on parity. If a computer model met its assigned target, the factory succeeded. If the machine functioned according to internal standards, the ministry reported fulfillment. The chart introduced a different measurement. Relative performance. Not plan versus goal, but structure versus structure. Comparison implies hierarchy. Hierarchy implies vulnerability. The chart was not publicly circulated. It moved through internal channels. Planning committees. Technical departments. Advisory groups. No decree followed. No official statement rejected its findings. The document simply stopped moving. Copies were collected. Discussion narrowed. Future reports focused on domestic benchmarks only. This was not theatrical suppression. It was procedural containment. The machines continued operating. Production lines continued assembling standardized components. Reports continued stating that targets were fulfilled. In official statistics, computer output increased year after year. More cabinets manufactured. More installations completed. More facilities automated. On paper, expansion was visible. What the paper did not show was comparative drift. In Western markets, competition forced rapid iteration. Under state coordination, stability often took priority over acceleration. Standardization across the bloc ensured compatibility among allied states. But it also slowed divergence from existing designs. When performance gaps appeared, engineers worked around them. Additional processing time was allocated. Tasks were simplified. Hardware modifications were introduced quietly at the margins. The structure absorbed discrepancy rather than announcing it. The comparison chart was dangerous not because it exposed failure. It exposed relativity. And relativity undermines closed narratives. If progress is measured only against internal targets, success is definable. If progress is measured against external systems, success becomes conditional. The removal of the chart did not eliminate the numbers. It eliminated the frame. Without the frame, the gap had no official shape. The mainframe rooms remained impressive. Visitors still saw blinking panels. White-coated technicians still monitored operations. 5-year plans continued listing computer expansion as a fulfilled objective. But the question the chart introduced did not disappear. It moved underground. By the early 1980s, global computing accelerated. Microprocessors began reshaping scale. Networks expanded. Corporate research divisions competed openly. Software ecosystems formed around hardware platforms. Inside the socialist bloc, computer programs remained centralized. Innovation required alignment across ministries. Budget reallocations required political justification. Rapid iteration required flexibility. The structure was not designed to prioritize. The issue was not ignorance. It was architecture. A centrally planned structure optimized for stability struggles to reward disruption. The comparison chart briefly inserted external reference into internal logic. It asked, compared to what? If the answer reveals a gap, correction requires admission. Admission invites reallocation. Reallocation invites responsibility. Responsibility invites scrutiny. A structure that cannot compare itself cannot correct itself. So the chart disappeared. The machines did not. Factories continued production. Reports continued fulfillment. Engineers continued working. But the structure avoided one specific act: public comparison. The computer gap was measurable. It was discussed in controlled spaces. It was managed through adaptation rather than declaration. The mainframe cabinet still stood as symbols of technological presence. But presence is not parity. And parity cannot be sustained by isolation from comparison. In the end, the most revealing object was not the machine. It was a sheet of paper with two columns. One domestic, one Western. The numbers remained. The chart did not.